Hey guys, now I was out at storage yesterday and I thought I'd share a little bit about some of the stuff I brought home. I'm trying to keep my things minimal in the house so if I have to go, I can go quickly. And well, before this trip, I think I was out at storage and I saw this out there thinking, well, it wouldn't hurt to bring this home. So this is something, if you do Chinese Shaolin or Shaolin Kung Fu actually, I was going to say, if you train at the Chinese Shaolin Center, every student starts with this weapon first, and I think many good kung fu schools will give you this weapon first because it teaches you every other weapon. So it's also a gym. It's like an all-in-one gym. So I can use this as my hiking stick. So what I did is I put a rubber end on this so I don't wreck my stick. Because you gotta remember is this weapon is not made to hit rocks and walls and things like that. You don't want to take your weapon and wreck it. So that's why I put that on there because I like to just take it hiking. And if I find a nice quiet spot, I'll stop and I'll work on some of my training. So some of it is just Danda yoga. So when I was in Denver, I trained with a guy named Roger Brockman. And so he's the one that sold me the staff. He had a number of weapons he prepared. And I really like the way he had this is just the right size. And he left some people will like sand that off and he left that on there. And the reason we sand it off is so it doesn't interfere, but the way this one is, it's perfect. We don't have to do all that. So rattan is not just wood, it's like grass. So that's why it's a good weapon. That's why this is it's like a piece of ancient Shaolin weaponry. And hey, if we run out of options, I still have this to fight with. And if you train with this, then like there's a lot of things that have this shape. But the next thing we do is we go to short stick. So this is one that Howard made. This isn't typically what you'd get in Shaolin. So this is made of driftwood that he found in Texas and the Gulf of Mexico. So he made this one and this one. Now I also had what we call a bokken, a really basic wooden sword designed to be like what we call a katana, the Japanese sword. Those are really some of the world best swords come from Japan and they're called a katana. So I left the one I have at the storage, but I thought I'd bring these home because I might actually train with them, and this was meant to be a half staff, meaning that it should be as half as tall as you are, and then you fight with it on one end like this. But there was a knot in the wood, and when I took this weapon outside and hit the bag with it, I think I was like really relieving some tension too. Maybe I had some built up stress that day and I just really wanted to whack and feel it, and it took the end off where the knot was, so I had to adjust it. So it's still a good walking cane. Like for someone my height, it could pass as a walking cane. And because these are driftwood, they're also nice and solid. So the nice thing about the one Howard made here is it has a thicker end. So if I wanted to have one or two things, it helps as a grip, I feel like that way it doesn't slide out of my hand. But at the same time, if I manage to hold it from the other end, it also adds a little weight to that. So now, maybe the next thing we'll do, if we've been working on, we've called that the double-ended staff because it's a staff that has two ends because you hold it by the middle and you work it like this, so you learn to fight from the middle. But when you get to a shorter staff, you learn to fight from one side of it. But then you get to a double staff. So we call the nunchuck the double broken staff. So this is kind of like having that long staff. Like maybe I'm fighting with that big long staff and maybe it gets broken in half. Then I know how to fight with these. Now these ones are not necessarily Shaolin weapons either. These are more like the Philippine martial arts, like Kali and Eskrima would recommend buying these. And so I don't know if these were meant to be a pair, but one seems to be just a little bit thicker than the other. So I think of them as being like a yin and yang set. So I have to change hands, or if we just have two people, that's fine. So and it looks like they put a nice coating on these, so they're really nice and dense. And so these are probably really great for practice. And like, let's say you're a musician, martial artist like I am. If you think about what we have here, let's say, okay, so I really hope to acquire a trap set one day. And when I play trap set, I typically, sit down and kick bass with the right foot, hi-hat with the left foot. But anyways, with my hands, That's the snare as you're playing. So when we talk about martial arts, I like to also use this as my snare hand if we're going to do rhythm training. And so in a roundabout way, training with these, it's like having big old drumsticks. So if you play drums, it's a form of percussion, right? And if you use weapons for striking, this is also a form of percussion. And so, you know, we don't want to hit with all of our strength. We just might need to hit just hard enough to make them drop their weapon, right? So just whack. I mean, let the stick do the work. Ouch. So I might be fighting another person with a stick. Ouch. Anyways, so yeah, I would really hate to get hit in the face with this. I mean, it's probably, there are parts of the world where people still fight in the streets and have weapons like this. And so this is another one of Howard's creations. He made this. And so now this is where I want to talk a little bit about the Magick crossover. Is that I have been going to visionary state, and I almost forgot, you know, one of the few times I've had a visionary state experience relating to martial arts, I was going to train with Roger Brockman. And so when you're in the Kuntao Silat system, we have nicknames like Guru and Uncle. So they called him Guru Brockman, and he trained out of his basement and in his backyard. Now Roger was bipolar and ended up committing suicide about a year or so after I quit going to him. And the reason I quit going to him was he was threatening to hurt me, to punish me because I was coming to class late and stuff like that. But I really appreciate what I did get out of him before I left. I mean, there was a lot of value in our conversations, a lot of things that he made me aware of. And well, when I went over to Roger's house, I went into visionary state, and we had that same talk about that staff versus this staff. And he had one similar and said, this is what, like, if you're going to have a staff, you want something like this. It's more of a club. This is like, if you're going to hit somebody with this, it's going to do something for you. So I must have went in a visionary state because he showed me this one, and I think he showed me the other one. And he gave me a lecture about the knot. And he explained the knot, and he showed me how, like, this could be a deadly weapon because, you know, if you conk someone on the head, that could be the last time, you know, for them. And otherwise, if you know, like, jujitsu, grappling, all this type of more sophisticated martial arts, then you could probably do stuff like use it softly, weave it in, and never really hurt. And so the nice thing about this weapon is I can't cut myself. I'm not likely to hurt myself as easily. So in a ways, I feel like this would be my weapon of preference if I needed to fight, you know, in a scenario where I needed a weapon, but I'm not going up against somebody who's going to shoot me, right? So you don't want to bring a knife to a gunfight, right? Or any other, I don't want to be in a gunfight or any fight, but like, I just think, yeah, this is definitely, but a powerful weapon. But I want to say, I want to keep this weapon sacred. So it was shown to me in the visionary state, and then in 2009, when I went to the Indian ceremonies, I must have had a visionary slip because a friend of mine was explaining this is the formality of a visionary, you know, a vision quest. Okay, this is the ceremony and its formality. Otherwise, sometimes these things unfold in an informal way where it may not be convenient. It'll just be at work, at home. It's just going to be, and he was telling me in my case, so most people they receive their I think it's called the chalupa. So it's really close to a chalupa. So don't get it confused with the taco thingy. Something from Taco Bell. The chalupa is the pipe. So if you're coming to ceremony and you do the second Vision Quest ceremony with the many of the native tribes, you receive a sacred pipe. And I was told that I might not receive a sacred pipe, but instead I'm going to receive something that looks like a club. And so the very next year, I had moved to Montana. And so this, along some of the other things, were leaning against the corner. And they were Howard's things, and I was checking them out and looking it over. And Rosie said, Jody, Howard wanted you to have those things. And so in the visionary state, in 2006, Roger showed me this. He talked a little bit, he said that he knew Howard, that was the weird thing, and talked a little bit about how to use this weapon and to be knowledgeable about the knot on it. And then in reality, when Rosie was telling me, oh, this was Howard's weapon, she explained all this stuff I'm sharing now about the hardwood, he made these, kind of like that nice big sharp knife. I'm not going to pull it out right now, but that's another one of those things I'd like to keep sacred. And so she also explained what the knot meant. She said it's very important to study the knot closely. The thing about the knot is that cross on there And then on the other side, you might look at it as if maybe these things are making a circle. The flow of the knot is making a circle. Well, that is kind of like part of a medicine wheel, like the circle having to cross through it, see? So I never wanted to untie the knot because Howard's the person who tied it. And so another lesson I learned, so back in reality, I was training with with Roger back in 2006. He was teaching out of his house, and so he considered me to be on the mystic warrior path. So he tried to create separate programs for different students, and so one of them was the scholar warrior. So by the way, those of you who do Shaolin, like people that I know from Chinese Shaolin, that's a scholar warrior program because it entails learning history and doing a lot of book reading there, right? So I'm not so much a scholar. I think I'm more of a mystic warrior because what I'm getting out of it is the magical side of it. And so when I go on to Shaolin, that's where I'm going to say I think I got a lot of valuable training for not only being an artist, but for understanding what real magic is. And so back to Roger's lecture, is that it's something I've been saying all along too, like you can gain psychic information from objects that have been handled by certain people. So, Howard has put a lot of energy into this. And so it remembers, like if he's played with this and trained with it, kind of like that bokken. I didn't pick up that bokken. I've seen a little bit of Japanese swordplay, but I feel like I totally feel the spirit of it. Like I could feel his energy translating to me. When I hold that weapon, I just want to do more Japanese stuff than I would have learned from the Chinese stuff. So, and then like this one, I'm not really sure. Like I've definitely played with this a lot, and used what I've learned from the Chinese stuff. Now, when you're talking about like a longer weapon like this, by the way, you have to be able to swing it over your head if you're moving on this plane. But when you're talking about a shorter weapon like this, the advantage is I don't have to worry about bonking my face as long as it's out there. So I can quickly bring it around. So this is a nice deadly weapon, but again, I want to keep this weapon sacred. And I will train with it and stuff, but I hope I never get in a fight anyways, period, end of story. But like anyways, so that's some of my magic training. Is that the Indonesian word for that is ilmu, that it holds memory. So like my friend Scott would say, he likes to wear his kung fu gi whenever he trains. He says it's almost like a computer chip. It helps him remember his kung fu. And so maybe it did, maybe putting that gi on, like if he just went out in his shorts and t-shirt, he'd be like, he had to put on his gi. So sometimes that's why you want to inherit an object from somebody that's been training really good, like a wizard. I don't know, maybe they giving you their one, like I've inherited like Rosie's wizard staff, so I think along with that I might inherit some of her wizard wisdom. So that's part of some of the magic training. It's just basic stuff. That's what I was saying. It's probably not even magic. It's just how things work, that the objects around us absorb information and it transfers to other people who are able to perceive it. So by doing Shaolin, I feel like I was finding that magic training I was looking for. When I started out with Ron Curran, I was telling him all about my interest in paranormal, out of body, and psychic awareness, and he said, well then you came to the right place. So he introduced me to Qigong. He taught me a Kempo Wushu system, but he said you really want to find a Shaolin. Those people really have it, they have the magic, and that's why I went to Shaolin, and that's where I met Master Tay. They call him Grandmaster Sin Kong Tay, and he's a storyteller. And so, I told him what was going on with me, and so I mentioned this book a few times. I've mentioned this a few times, but I just think it's cool because Master Tay has also been going into visionary state. And the funny thing, when I was hanging out with Master Tay, I always felt like he's like hanging out with a girl or something. Like he's a feminine person. Well, in his book, when he goes to visionary state, he's a woman with a pet tiger. And so his trip's different than mine. People tell me you don't want to compare your visions to other people's visions. Everyone has their own, meaning and experience. But along with that, though, just Shaolin itself, like if you just want to be good at fighting, you really don't need kata, like long forms, But what those long forms are, those are ceremony. So, when we hold class, we do a ceremony. We hit the gong, we kneel, we do a bow, and kind of honor the whole universe. We honor all of our classmates. And we tuned into Kung Fu, the Kung Fu wavelength for an hour or two. And so learning and performing those katas. So when we do our testing, it's like a little ceremony. I'm going to get up there and I'm going to walk through that form. It's a little ceremony. And so what we're there for are so many different things. Like we want to be stronger people. We want to be good fighters and all the things that go into it. And so we become part of sort of a field of intention, you know. So what it's doing is help bringing us into a field of intention for one thing, because we're all doing the same forms together, you know. And so it ties us into the old history of Shaolin. So in a ways, by meeting Master Tay and getting involved with the system, I feel like it's helped me to tap in to the field of intention that Shaolin Kung Fu has. So I feel like at the heart in China somewhere, you know, it's like, or at the center of this is happening. So I was talking a little bit about kind of the whole universe is kind of linked together. We're all part of a collective, but then we belong to smaller collectives. So that might be what we call our prayer circle, because when we put our energy together, you know, our prayer action is going to Kung Fu and working on being stronger and more formidable. So when we put a bunch of people together that want the same thing, that helps improve the likelihood, you know, it just raises the energy in that direction. So that's where Shaolin is not just fighting, it's also magic. A little bit of magic, everything we do, like when you put your belt on, you're doing a little magic ritual. You're being protected with the circle of heaven, you know, and all that good stuff. So, and so I'm also seeing how this applies to the music world. So by going to hang out with the Native Americans, it helped me realize that everything is ceremony. So like going to my Kung Fu class and learning these small ceremonies we call short forms and long forms, and then into the music world, you know, so when we gather up and have a concert and everyone shuts, you know, they're all focused on the band, we're all dancing to the same music, they're taking us through a sort of an informal ceremony. We're kind of a part of a, you know, the cultural revolution, and part of the new paradigm is not being tied into a tradition and having too many strict rules, that we're here for maybe an energy raising experience. So when people go to like these like trance parties, you know, like I'll look at Christopher Lawrence and all these guys, and they're all going like this. The DJs are going, you know, so what they're doing is they're having an energy raising and a consciousness raising ceremony, you know, and the music's just part of it. Now when we tap into the collective, so like let's say you're listening to like the global trance underground stuff. So the cool thing about this music collective is we're involving people from around the world, you know, and so there's some really great trance techno that comes out of South America, Central America, Europe, United States, Canada, Japan, Russia. Oh, so it's kind of cool because he'll let us know, like this one came from Russia, this one came from Japan, and it's helping us all to kind of create a global collective. So like I was talking about how we need to unite, we're providing a way for different groups of people to unite. And so those of us, you know, that are psychedelic, we're uniting through the trance techno community. So I'm part of a global community now, and so if I can get active and make music and stuff, that's part of my, you know, my method is kind of being part of that network, you know. So we're spreading that synapses between the people in that community. Now being part of the industrial music community, you know, they started like right around the time I was being born, and so they've always been on to Magick, you know, so they're kind of more of a shamanic kind of people. So when those people talk about, oh, we were just hippies, no, you weren't. They were more like part of the beatnik generation. They were more to the intellectual side. See, people don't like that kind of music as much because it gets deep and dark and it takes you to places that are uncomfortable, where the hippie side is all happy, joy. So there's a lot of hippie music on the radio. And so the hippies are able to spread their magic a lot easier because they don't have too much of the dark stuff. But the people onto the intellectual side that are tied in with, you know, underground music and industrial music and various forms of like dark metal and stuff like that, you know. So we're coming face to face, you know. It's not about being depressed and about being evil. A lot of times the music is like, you need to find that strength, you know. So I notice the people that like that hard metal and stuff, they're like the Vikings, you know. They have their long hair and beard and all the tattoos. They look like they're ready to go to war and they're gonna have fun doing it. You like to fight, I like to fight. Ah, you know, so it's that fighting, you know, like we kind of have to tap into that predator. Maybe that's why we sing like monsters, you know, because you got to find that predator inside of you when it's time to fight. So it's all kind of where my life seems to entangle all of these issues, you know. So I feel like I'm going into a kind of music where the particular niche that I like, it really helps me find my fighting power, And that's why I like that industrial music, and some of the hard trance I like has that sort of survival sound to it. So I want to put some music on. I've been struggling to get my laptop up and running so I could do some karaoke and maybe show you guys some of my rhythm training and how I'm combining, you know, my rhythm training and my kung fu training, so I can just have a good time, because there's a lot of different ways we can experience music. You know, you might just relax and listen to music and just ride it along in your easy chair. I like to jam it on the highway. Yeah, that's why I call my truck the boogie wagon. I like to turn up the techno and jam it on the highway. And then, you know, I like to go to concerts and be in a room filled with everybody that wants to hear the same crap all at the same time. And some of the people even want to slam dance with me and have a really deep, heavy experience. But another way I love to experience music is I like to play the air drums with my nunchucks. So if you go into the Fat Old Black Belt, look for rhythm training. I do my nunchucks to noise unit, so I don't have to do that again. Whew, it's really dangerous. Anyways, you guys, just wanted to share a little bit about more confirmation on finding magic in real life, you know, because I feel like, you know, like the experiences I've had, like say learning through these weapons, you know, teaching me a little bit about basic understanding of magic, you know, and then in Kung Fu, I've experienced, you know, the magic of Kung Fu. I feel like I kind of get these psychic downloads where I could just see Kung Fu all of a sudden, just like, whoa. And then when I get in a couple different fights, the Kung Fu kicked in and worked automatically. That's where I think, you know, when you tap into the spirit of Shaolin, it'll always help you, you know, because you're tapping into a collective that are there for the same reason. Now, one night I was delivering pizza, okay, and this is just a funny example of how this might, it could be an example of how the Shaolin spirit, you know, connects on a subconscious level sometimes, because I was delivering the guy's pizza, and I think maybe he had a beer or two, and so he's probably a little loosey-goosey, but an older guy, he had a beard and everything, nice guy, but then he went like this after we were done, and so I also, and he goes, aha, you must train Kung Fu. I said, see? I said, the Shaolin spirit is strong. So yeah, so this is what I'm about. That's why I appreciated like that card I got from my job, where I'm just thinking, I wonder if this lady doesn't appreciate me. Maybe she too materialistic. And then she says, you are magic. Well, that's what we're talking about in my path as an artist, you know, that that some of my Shaolin training has really helped me to find that true magic and prepare me for what I could be doing. And I think a lot of my background in music really helps bring more emphasis that music is magic. And that's why I like this wall hanging above my music. See, all the magic is just flowing off of my music, you know. So this is the mentality I like. It's not about being delusional. So finding the real magic in life again is just that raising your energy, expanding your consciousness. The more we expand our consciousness, the more we can perceive, and the more we can perceive, the better our discernment. Then we can tell if what's going on in front of us, because sometimes you can't take things for face value. You need to have a deeper level of discernment, and that's only going to come through the best state of clarity you can achieve. So I'm not here to fill my mind with delusion. My attempt is to gain clarity. We want to be psychic in a way that we can talk to the living universe. We can read the environment, and we can also help bring down a higher funk. You know what I'm saying? Bringing down a higher funk, yeah. Bringing down a higher funk, yeah. I like to get funky. Bringing down a higher, bring me a higher funk, yeah. That's what it's all about. So anyways, so all you people who believe in magic, another big high five, maybe another one to match, and bringing down a higher funk and making life bigger and brighter, and then that way your life is an adventure and not a disaster. Anyways, I'm gonna bow out. Thank you if you've been listening this whole time. Oh my goodness, and have a happy what we call it's Christmas Eve. So have a Merry Christmas Eve, and I will talk to you soon.